Hello and welcome to the sixth episode on India's wars since its independence and how the geostrategic situation led to India's responses in conflicts that have been thrust upon India and how our government in general and our military in particular responded to ensure that India's territories are secure and India's sovereignty is guarded. In earlier episodes, we've talked about the 1947-48 conflict, we've talked about the 1962 conflict when China invaded India, and in the earlier episode connected to this, we talked of the first part of the 1965 war, that what led to India's response in 1965 to a Pakistani-led invasion of the Kashmir Valley, followed by Pakistani attacks across Punjab. These were two-part operations. The Kashmir Valley operation was called by Pakistan Op Gibraltar, and the military tank-led assaults on Punjab was called Operation Grand Slam. General and self-styled President Ayub Khan was Pakistan's leader, and he was prodded on by Zulfikar Bhutto, who was his young and ambitious foreign minister, who felt the time was right to attack India and to destroy whatever was left of India's self-confidence. What Bhutto failed to understand that in 1962, the Indian army could have done much better against China if it was allowed to fight like military men prepared to and know how to do, and not be bogged down by political interference as the Indian army was with Nehru, Krishna Menon, their intelligence chief P.N. Malik, and people like General B.G. Kaul. So in 1965, the Pakistanis were carrying the impression that India had lost its self-confidence, but another thing that had encouraged Pakistan to do muscle flexing against India was the fact that in 1963, the Pakistanis had firmed up an agreement with the Chinese for giving away to China the Chambh Valley, some 1,500 square miles or even more of territory of a very valuable area in terms of water resources just north of Jammu and Kashmir. This became and is till today very much an important landmass for Pakistan as well for China as part of the China-Pak nexus. China in turn gave Pakistan access to the second highest peak in the Himalayan range, Goodwin Austen or K2. But Pakistan wanted more, and China said to Pakistan that you get on with your operations against India, but we will threaten India and therefore bog down 6 to 8 Indian military divisions because India would not withdraw its troops from the Himalayas and put them into the plains to defend the ground against Pakistani attack. And therefore, when Pakistan's operations began to unfold, India, having got wind of it, as I brought out earlier, through a visit by the IAF Chief, Air Chief Marshal Arjun Singh, and the Army Chief General Chaudhry to the valley, India's operations were unfolded like a coiled spring into the plains of Pakistan's Punjab. This took Ayub Khan completely by surprise. He had launched his tank forces towards Punjab because the intention was to cut off Punjab from New Delhi so that if Punjab was cut off, Kashmir would receive no military intervention from India and Pakistan would take over Kashmir, declare its independence and ask for a UN-related solution over Kashmir. But Pakistan was checkmated. Ayub Khan panicked. He was not getting enough inputs about the ground reality, and when he did get, he was unable to sustain his operations towards the Kashmir Valley and pulled out whatever troops he had to get on with holding on to the defense of important towns of Pakistan's Punjab like Lahore and Sialkot. Some fierce military offensives and counteroffensives played out. One of them was the famous one at Khemkaran, where Pakistan's armored division, and an armored division, just to give you an idea of what it is so powerful and it is so big that it is believed in military circles, it is often only the will of God that can stop an armored division. Because when the first tank of an armored division reaches Mumbai, the last tank or vehicle of an armored division would leave Pune. It is that many military vehicles in one division. And Pakistan had launched its Patton tank-centric divisions against India. They thought nothing could stop it but the will of God. But there was one determined resistance put on by one soldier from 4 grenadiers, Havaldar Abdul Hamid. And he, over a period of 3 days, knocked out 7 Patton tanks right on the front line. It was unbelievable. In history of warfare, it has rarely happened. Abdul Hamid, in fact, got his Paramveer Chakra on the first day of the operation because he knocked off 3 Pakistani tanks with the famous 106mm recoilless gun. But he was asked to pull back. He said, no way, I'm still alive. I've got to fight more. Second day, he knocked out another 3. He should have got a second Paramveer Chakra. And the third day, he knocked out the 7th one, and the 8th one, he died in the counter fire by Pakistan. But the man became a legend. But it shocked the Pakistanis. Ayub Khan was further shocked to believe the Patton tanks could not get into Punjab and cut off Punjab from Kashmir and the rest of India. There were other counter-offensives launched by India. The famous one were the tank offensives at the Battle of Philora. This became the largest tank battle in the history of the world after World War II. Many famous actions took place, one of them being that of 17 Pune Horse and its commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel A.B. Tarapur, who also got a Paramveer Chakra, who kept on fighting for 2 to 3 days with an arm in a sling and was wounded, but he refused to stop. He got a Paramveer Chakra. Hodson's Horse performed exceptionally well. And again, there were officers who got Mahavir Chakra and VRC. But most importantly, India knocked off so many Pakistani tanks. By military records, Pakistan lost over 150 tanks and 154 were captured by India. That just outside Amritsar, if you were to go there, you can see what they call Patton Nagar. All destroyed Pakistani tanks are lined up out there for you to see and take photographs with. But Indian jets were playing hell with the Pakistani Air Force too. And though Pakistan had superior jets, India's fighter aircrafts were giving them merry hell. Most interestingly, Indian troops reached the gates of Lahore and Sialkot. But the problem was they didn't know what to do thereafter. There were no clear orders. Do you take over Lahore? Do you bypass Lahore and you proceed deeper into Pakistan? Or you just stand there? And while they stood around there waiting for orders, Pakistan negotiated very quickly a ceasefire arrangement, and India fell into the trap again. A ceasefire operations was suggested on the grounds that India would be able to settle the Kashmir issue favorably, and Pakistan would get Indian troops to withdraw and save themselves the humiliation of Indians sitting in Lahore and Sialkot. Some other operations on the sides were also important. The famous capture of Haji Pir Pass by Major R.S. Dayal, later Lieutenant General R.S. Dayal, and the Battle of Haji Pir and Batapur, amongst others, by Major, later Brigadier Desmond Hayes. Both got Mahavir Chakras, both were batchmates from the academy. Strangely, as is the case often with India and its negotiators, its diplomats and bureaucrats, we gave back to Pakistan the biggest gains at Haji Pir, which today Pakistan uses to infiltrate all these terrorists into the Indian Valley. Just like we gave back to the Chinese after Galwan the heights on the Kailash ranges, which we had captured from the Chinese in a surprise operation. But finally, and most importantly, a lesson that emerged from 65 was, give the army a free hand and the army will give you victory. It's another matter that we failed to claim victory even when we had captured more territory than the Pakistanis claimed to have captured. But because we did not claim victory, other than announcing that there is a Vijay Chowk near South Block, near Raisina Hill in Delhi, Pakistan used the 65 war to tell their people they had a victory against India. What was the victory? That they managed to save Lahore and Sialkot from falling to Indian hands. Ayub Khan, however, was hounded out of power because of having messed up the operations, and Bhutto, who prodded him along, rose further in importance and power and became the man who not only orchestrated the 1965 war but eventually orchestrated Pakistan's clampdown on Dhaka, which led to the 71 war. But that is another story.